Another bounce back win for the Kings, and the trend continues of losing big, but then immediately bouncing back with a solid win. This one against a kind of depleted Phoenix Suns team. The Suns are now 14 and 14 on the season. Kings beat them 120 to 105, and the Suns did have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, but were without Bradley Beal and Yusuf Nurkic, Josh Okogie. And so for an already thin Suns team where you're invested in your top three guys and you don't have much depth after that, especially not having Nurkic in this one was really tough for the Suns. And when I saw he wasn't playing, my nerves for this game just totally went out the window because I was like, there's no way the Kings lose when the Suns are going to start Drew Eubanks at center, and they have, I love my guy, but they have Udoka Azubuike coming off the bench, and he wasn't bad, put up an 11-11 game, but that doesn't scare me at all. And immediately the Kings took advantage of Drew Eubanks inside, especially Sabonis, scoring the first 7 points for the Kings, just going straight at Eubanks, and the Kings just continuously attack the paint with very little shot blocking, very little size. They got 2 quick fouls on Eubanks, forced Azubuike to come in. Then there was 2 quick fouls on Azubuike. The fouls didn't end up being that big of a deal for them, but I loved the way that the Kings were just relentlessly attacking the paint early. And the way that first quarter was officiated was not fun. It was just foul call after foul call, and felt like one of the slowest first quarters or quarters of the season. And they also had that weird clock issue where they just randomly added like 53 seconds onto the clock, which could have had some implications. Like, what if they didn't realize until there was less than 53 seconds in the quarter? And it made the Suns not go for a 2-for-1. So that was just a weird moment, and I've never seen that happen. But the way it was officiated, everything was a foul. There were lots of touch fouls on the perimeter. Keegan picked up 2 touch fouls on the perimeter. Herter picked up an early one. The Suns were in the penalty about halfway through the first quarter, and that was definitely a bit worrying because it wasn't through them attacking the paint. It was just the Kings trying to play physical defense on the perimeter. And I liked the way the Kings were playing defense. I didn't think they were being overly physical. I thought they were doing it just the right amount of physicality against Booker, against Kevin Durant, trying to make them uncomfortable. And just the way the game was being officiated, it kind of went against us at that point. And I'm not saying the officiating was against us, because there were the same calls on both ends. But I'm just saying, in terms of the way the Kings wanted to defend Booker and Durant, it was difficult because of those touch fouls. But I think the Kings never went away from the physicality defensively against those two guys, and they made it difficult. And the offense in this game was solid, but I think it was really the defense that was the really bright spot for the Kings. And the one thing that I really noticed was just how active the Kings' hands were. It was just constantly guys getting their hands on the ball, steals, deflections, blocks, whatever it was. And the help defense was just really, really good for almost the entire game. Malik Monk had 3 blocks. I think it even could have been 4. Like, I think they didn't count the jump ball that he forced as a block, so it could have been even more. He had a double block on one possession. I thought he was particularly good in that area defensively. Keon Ellis was super active defensively. Fox had 2 blocks, 3 steals. Herter was getting in the passing lanes, and he was protecting the rim as well. Barnes was super active, 3 stocks. And it was just the way the Kings were helping against the likes of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. They were loading up against them, and especially in transition did a good job of loading up early, not allowing them to get to the paint. And I think they did that well for probably the first 2.5 quarters. And then they got up big, like 29 points. and it just went away. The help defense just totally evaporated. They let them, score in transition, and they didn't totally finish the Suns. It would have been nice to not have to play our guys at all in the fourth quarter. Obviously I can't be too mad because it was a really solid win and we held the lead throughout most of the game. But there is a part of me that's like, why can the Kings just not totally put teams away when the opposite happens every time? The Kings just constantly are getting down by like 30 points when they're losing big. And it just totally feels like the Kings get put away, whereas the Kings, they let the other team back in the game. They gave the Suns some hope, but they were able to kind of maintain that 18 to 20 point lead for most of it. The closest the Suns got was 15 in that run that they had late in the third quarter, start of the fourth quarter. I'm not including garbage time because obviously the game ended as a 15-point game. It was the first half, we kind of had the lead between 8 to 10 points, and then the second half upped it to 18 to 20 points. So it's definitely hard to be mad at the Kings consistently holding the lead for the entire game. And it never really felt like the Kings, even when it was only an 8 to 10 point game, it never felt like the Kings were going to give it back. Because with watching the Kings most of the time, I'm just terrified. When's that run coming? When is the Kings defense going to just completely collapse? The offense misses a few shots or turns the ball over, and then the defense will just completely collapse. And I really never felt that was ever going to happen in this game. And I mean, it is what happened late in like the second half of the third quarter, but at that point we were up 29. And so, yeah, it was like slightly nerve-wracking, but when you're up 29, you're feeling pretty good. But when we were up in that like 8 to 10 point range, the defense to that point had just been really, really good, that I never felt like we were going to let the Suns go on this huge run. And our offense was consistent enough, and the ball movement was amazing. Sabonis was awesome. And so even when Kevin Durant would hit a really tough shot, or Devin Booker would hit a tough shot, where those shots that you're like, nothing else you could do on that one, those shots were not enough to keep up with the way the Kings were playing offensively, because they weren't letting anyone else on the Suns really get into the game. And, I thought the Kings' help defense was really good, but what it did kind of open up for the Suns was the lob and finding the guy at the dunker spot. So there were definitely some easy buckets for the Suns in that area. But I would much rather have that sometimes than when Devin Booker is able to just drive by the first guy and get an easy layup. I'd much rather force him to make a tough pass than obviously let him just get to the rim and make a pretty uncontested layup. It was interesting the way the Kings decided to defend Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. They put Keegan Murray on Devin Booker. They put Barnes on Kevin Durant. And my best guess for why we decided to do that was just the size. And what I mean by that is, sure, we could have put Fox on Booker and Keegan on Durant, but that allows Devin Booker to shoot over Fox, and Kevin Durant is going to shoot over pretty much anyone. And so you might as well put Keegan on the quicker Booker and not allow Booker to shoot over Keegan as easily as he would be able to do against Fox. And then, of course, Barnes is going to get shot over by Durant, but he's able to maintain his position with his strength in the post and force Durant into longer mid-range shots. And, Durant got his in the mid-range. He was efficient, 9 of 14, but they forced him into 7 turnovers. And they were doubling him throughout most of the game. The Suns did not knock down threes. They went 5 for 25. Only knocking down 5 threes is pretty crazy. Grayson Allen had 3 of them. Kevin Durant had 2 of them. Nobody else on the team hit a 3. Eric Gordon played 25 minutes and only attempted 2 shots, had 0 points. And when you're playing against a team with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, but really nobody else. Like, you need to make sure that Eric Gordon doesn't get going because he's that third scorer. Nobody else on that Suns roster is really going to get it going scoring wise. Their centers and big guys may get dunks off of Kevin Durant and Devin Booker attracting attention, but in terms of other perimeter players scoring, Grayson Allen, he's going to sit outside and shoot threes. So is Yuta Watanabe, Nasir Little, Sabin Lee, Jordan Goodwin. Like, none of those guys are going to create their own shot. So Eric Gordon's the only other guy, and limiting him to only 2 shot attempts is a massive win. And something that's been an issue for the Kings in the past 2 games that hasn't been an issue all season has been the offensive rebounding, or the defensive rebounding, allowing offensive rebounds. They allowed 15, got out rebounded in this one, allowed the Suns to take more shots, win the field goal attempted battle. And there were definitely some frustrating moments when it came to the rebounding. Barnes had 1 rebound. Herter had 1 rebound. Those are the kind of guys that I look towards to determine how our rebounding has been, because Sabonis is going to get his rebounds. Keegan's been pretty consistent. Fox is the smallest guy on the court, but he still picks up his fair share. But then it's like, are Herter and Barnes also contributing on the boards? And it hasn't been great these past 2 games. And I think the main reason it happens, that the Kings are allowing these offensive rebounds, is because they've been in rotation so much, especially in this one. When they're doubling Durant and then rotating around the perimeter, when a shot goes up, they're not as locked in on getting the rebound, of preventing their man from getting the rebound because they've been rotating. And so I think that's the one thing, if I were to say anything, that they needed to clean up defensively. The bench was interesting in this one. Like, the starting lineup was great. Sabonis, amazing. 28 points, 12 assists, 11 rebounds. Got his triple-double. Was just awesome all game. Efficient. Going right at Eubanks. Making the correct decisions. Pushing it in transition. Just doing everything he does. Barnes had 19 points. Went 4 for 8 from 3. The biggest thing for me, I mean, maybe his 3-point shooting is the biggest thing, because that's really important. And he's been shooting it really well this season. But it seems like Harrison Barnes is back, and it's because he's getting to the free throw line. He was 5 for 6 from the free throw line. Had that big and one at the end of the third quarter when the Suns were kind of making a run. They were within 16, and then with like 2 seconds on the clock or whatever, or it might have been like 0.7 on the clock, I think, actually. He was able to draw an and one on a fadeaway in the mid-range to push the lead to 19, and he was able to do his slow rolling and get to the line a few times, and he was just attacking the rim. He's been playing so much better offensively lately, and he was really solid defensively against Durant, I thought. And so that is going to be key if he can keep playing like this for the Kings. Even at his peak, he's not the guy that's going to totally change this team, especially on the defensive end where the Kings kind of need it. But it's still a huge deal when he can give you those 15 points on offense and just get to the free throw line and knock down threes. And speaking of getting to the free throw line, the rhythm of this game was totally taken out of it by the officiating. Like, I talked about the officiating in the first quarter, but I didn't really talk about how it affected the game in terms of just the rhythm totally being taken out of it. The Kings were not able to push the pace like they want to. And so then when the officiating kind of stopped being as much of a factor, you could see the Kings pushing the pace more. And they got some easy buckets on some, long kind of touchdown passes that always make me incredibly nervous. But they hit like 4 of them just to get easy layups. And I say easy layups. There's that one, Sabonis to Fox, where Fox caught it in his right hand and never touched it with his left, and then just put it off the glass. His offhand, which was super impressive and a tough layup. And he had another one of those kind of where he just never touches it with his other hand. But that one was with his left hand, where he just goes zooming right by a guy and goes high off the glass. But the Kings kind of got the pace back into it, which I think helped them a lot. But again, going back to going through the starting lineup. Keegan Murray defending Devin Booker, and then he started off a little slow, missing his first, I think, three-point attempts. And I've noticed recently, like, his release has gotten quicker. And in the past few games, they've been going down, that quick release shot. In this one, those quick releases weren't quite going down. He got, okay looks. I wouldn't call them great looks. And then he was able to get a better look from three. He knocked it down, and that kind of got him going. He hit a few step backs, and those are the kind of shots that make you think this guy could be a star. And he had that one in the mid-range, I think, when he was being guarded by Booker. He got hit in the face and still knocked down the long mid-range. And again, he's just doing it all within the flow of the offense, but he was just hitting huge shots and then hit a couple of floaters, which at this point I've come to just kind of expect that they're going in for him. And I also just expect anytime he steps back, I expect it to go in. Fox, just a light 23 points. I said the 3 steals, 2 blocks, 7 assists, 6 rebounds. Just a chill game for him. But he really had it going in the first half, and then just didn't have to do much in the second half. It was kind of everyone contributing, especially Barnes in the second half, the third quarter there, and Sabonis was picking him apart. But in the first half, he knocked down that first 3, and I think that really changed everything because they went under the screen. I think it was Grayson Allen, and it's like you just can't go under the screen on this guy anymore. He's so consistent from deep. So he knocked that one down, and then that kind of totally opened up the rest of his game because another play like right after that, he catches the ball at the 3-point line, and Devin Booker just comes running out, closing out super hard, and Fox just goes right by him. And Fox was using his super speed a little bit more in this one than I think we've been seeing as of late. And he had that huge first quarter and first half against the Celtics in the last one that was kind of wasted. And so I felt like he's kind of like, I got to do that again because I got to get the win in it this time and not have a waste of a performance. And then Kevin Huerter was knocking down a couple open threes, missed a couple others, but he was getting inside. Drew an and one, was kind of part of that early onslaught at the rim against Drew Eubanks. And then I thought he just had a really solid all-around game. I think he's just been struggling with getting less touches last season. I would say he was that third guy that the Kings were, drawing up plays for. And now Keegan Murray has taken those looks away from him, I think. And I think he's just struggled a bit with not touching the ball as much and not getting as many shot attempts as he's been used to. But I think he's finding his way in terms of finding other ways to impact the game. And hopefully he can start knocking down his open threes at a little better rate than he has been recently. But the starting lineup definitely carried this one. The bench was a little odd that Trey Lyles only played 11 minutes, I thought. He attempted only 1 shot, no points, didn't attempt a 3, had 4 rebounds in 11 minutes. And then we had Sasha Vezenkov play 6 minutes, and he came in, immediately knocked down a 3. And I thought he had kind of a first stint that was close to being great. But he just kind of made the wrong decisions at the key points, passed up a few open shots and just didn't he was so close to having just a great stint, and he was just barely making the wrong decisions. But he definitely has the green light from Mike Brown, and he immediately came in and knocked down that 3. When he follows through on his 3-point shot, it is going down almost every time. But again, only 6 minutes, and I think it was just, one, the starters were playing super well, but also 2, when you're going up against Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, you don't want those guys in Trey Lyles and Sasha Vezenkov really being switched onto them. And I think the defense was playing a lot better with, Keon Ellis in there. Monk was playing well defensively. I'll get to JaVale, but then the starters were just playing really well. So we didn't need those guys to play huge minutes, but it definitely was weird not seeing Trey Lyles play a lot of minutes. But going to JaVale McGee, 10 minutes, and he had a solid outing, I would say. It definitely wasn't perfect. There were some mistakes like closing out too hard on Chimezi Metu at the 3-point line and then closing out too hard on someone else as well. His closeouts were really bad, and but he was providing a deterrence at the rim, and he was getting inside. He got to the free throw line a couple times. Had a nice dunk from the dunker spot. And I would say it just wasn't as chaotic as it has been in recent games. And so it's a step forward for him, I think. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad like his last performances have been. Monk, I talked about his defense. His 3-point shot wasn't going down, but I think him and Domas getting into the two-man game, especially early in that fourth quarter, that kind of put this game away. Him, maybe it was a little over dribbling, but it was working with him and Domas in the two-man game when the offense had kind of gone stagnant. The Suns were within a run of making this interesting, and they kind of just kept pace with the Suns in terms of scoring because of that Monk-Domas two-man game. And so that was key. Another 5-assist night from him. Keon wasn't knocking down his open shots and was part of that second half of the third quarter where the Kings just couldn't hit anything, and they were settling for too many threes when the Suns did not have a center in the game. But he got open looks and just didn't knock him down, but his defense was really good. The best part of this game was undoubtedly the start of the third quarter, where the Kings came in with an 11-point lead and then just went on a massive run at the start of the third quarter. They hit their first 11 shots from the field and went 2 for 2 from the free throw line. They were pushing the pace. Herter caught an oop from Fox. In transition, you had Domas dominating inside, Keegan knocking down his threes. And they didn't allow the Suns to score for a while. And the Suns were missing some open shots, and they were getting offensive rebounds, so they were getting multiple looks, and they still were missing. But the Kings just absolutely punished them for those misses. Keegan on fire, Fox just finishing at the rim. And then we had a lineup with no Fox and no Monk, which, I'm not the biggest fan of, but we didn't collapse. We kind of were just maybe giving up a few points with that lineup, but then it was the lineup when Fox came back in and it really just went south, where the Kings just weren't getting to the rim enough. And again, those are the moments the Kings need to clean up, but it didn't end up mattering because they had such a big lead. Some other moments from this game, that massive Malik Monk dunk after the Keon Ellis steal. Amazing. Keegan gives it a 3 out of 10. That means it was amazing. You had Herter putting pressure on Durant and forcing a backcourt violation, which was awesome. Frank Vogel got so mad because, you say, and Herter's pushing him, which, it was not a foul, but in terms of what they'd been calling up to that point, I get why he was mad, because they had been calling every little touch foul up to that point. But that's when they, started changing how they were calling the game, and definitely changed it for the better. No one wants to see all those touch fouls, but that was really good from Kevin Herter. Frank Vogel picked up a tech. Kevin Durant picked up a tech. Devin Booker picked up a tech. It's always fun to have the opponent pick up technical fouls. I don't know why, but it just, it makes the crowd go crazy. And then I guess just one other thing. At the start of the second quarter, and at the last possession of the first quarter, actually, Saben Lee came in, and it was a horrible possession. The Kings trying to run the clock down and get the final shot. JaVale McGee comes to set a screen for Fox. Fox passes it to Monk. So JaVale runs over to set a screen for him. Monk passes it back to Fox. JaVale's just like, what are we doing? You know, like I'm trying to set a screen for you guys and you're just passing it to the other guy. And then Fox gets blocked by Saban Lee. Not a good possession, but, solid defense from Saban Lee, solid ball pressure. And he came out in the second half and was really, trying to bring the intensity on Fox and trying to put pressure on him. And it just didn't work at all. Like, Fox just maintained his head, he stayed calm and got the ball knocked away from him at one point. But then you just run right by Saban Lee and get into the paint. And so it's fun to watch just a guy come in and just totally try to put pressure on Fox, and it just not faze Fox in the slightest. And Fox was able to just get wherever he wanted. Saban Lee was putting pressure on him, and he just gets into the mid-range, takes a JaVale McGee screen, walks around it, right into a midi, and knocks it down. And he just looked so in control. He didn't need to do too much in this game, but was efficient when we needed him. This next game is the game that we really need the Kings to just at least make it close, because it is the second night of a back-to-back where the Kings continually get blown out. It is against the top team in the West, the Minnesota Timberwolves. They'll be without Karl Anthony Towns. But honestly, does that even matter? Because Naz Reid just comes in and kills the Kings every time, and Naz Reid will take all of his minutes. And I just want to see some fight. We may not win this game, but we got to at least make it close. Like, I cannot watch another blowout in this type of game. The last time the Kings played the Timberwolves was an in-season tournament game. Kings came out on top. Fox had 36 points. He wasn't super efficient from the field, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get your points. And the main thing that I remember from this game was just Anthony Edwards getting to the free throw line like 20 times. It must have been close to that. Let me check. Yeah, it was 18 times. He shot 17 for 18 from the free throw line. And I mean, we cannot let that happen again. The help defense and the way we defended Devin Booker and Kevin Durant is definitely encouraging, but the Timberwolves are not the Phoenix Suns. They have more help around their guys. Obviously, no Karl Anthony Towns will help, but it's definitely going to be tougher. But I think we have to play him a similar way that we played probably Kevin Durant. Of course, the difference between guarding Kevin Durant and guarding Anthony Edwards in this one is we're going to have Keegan Murray on Anthony Edwards. But also, I think Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes are going to be huge, especially Kevin Huerter, because, Rudy Gobert is in there inside. The Timberwolves are a very long team, and that can cause problems for the Kings getting into the paint and scoring in the paint. And we're going to have to knock down our threes to win this game. And we did last time against the Timberwolves. We knocked down 17, and we don't necessarily have to shoot around 50% again, but we do need our shooters to knock down their shots. Keegan Murray didn't play in the last game against the Timberwolves, so that should help in terms of the Anthony Edwards getting to the free throw line so much. But just the only thing I ask for is that we see a little fight from the Kings, and we just see it until the very end, even if they don't win this game. Because no matter what, we've locked up a winning homestand. We are 4-1 so far in the homestand going into this final game. And so no matter what, it has been a successful homestand, I think. But this would, if we won against the Timberwolves, that would, I think, give us so much momentum. Anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back tomorrow night to recap the game against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I'll see you guys then. Peace.